Hello, guys. Professor O'Brien here doing a quick uh, follow-up lecture on coordination and subordination because it connects up very well with what we've been doing lately. I know that I asked you to read two chapters of um, the McGraw-Hill text. 44. I'm just going to concentrate on chapter 44 today, not because I find 43 useless, but because we've kind of covered this, the dangling modifiers, in the past week or two in other places. So when it comes to bang for the buck, I would prefer to use my time more carefully. You'll remember we discussed sentences like the one at the top of page 677. Swimming towards the boat on the horizon, the crowded beach felt as if it were miles away. Now, it's clear that somebody's doing the swimming, but grammatically, it appears as if the beach is swimming, because whenever you see these modifiers, these phrasal modifiers that don't have subjects of their own, you attach them immediately to the subject of the main clause. So the crowded beach is the subject of the main clause there, so it makes one feel grammatically that the beach is doing the swimming towards the boat, but that's not possible. Beaches can't swim, so that's that. Okay, now, like I say, I'm more interested in chapter 44, coordination and subordination. The difference is in balance. Page 679 gives us a reasonably intelligent introduction to this, explanation of this. You coordinate clauses that are of equal value. The sky grew dark and the wind began to howl. You can see that both statements are of equal value. They don't have to be clauses, they can be simple adjectives or nouns. The newlyweds were poor but happy. Poor and happy are again being coordinated using the word but. So 44b, beginning page 679, more or less emphasizes this, that you coordinate things that are of equal value, whether they're nouns, adjectives, phrases, clauses, or sometimes, well, sentences, clauses, same thing. You can overdo this, many people do, by putting too many coordinators in, or coordinating things that really shouldn't be coordinated. So there's an example provided 2/3 of the way down page 680. The tortoise beat the hare, but the hare is a faster runner than the tortoise. Now you can kind of get what's meant, but it would make much more sense to make one of those clauses subordinate, wouldn't it? And that's what is suggested here. The tortoise beat the hare, even though the hare can run faster than the tortoise. Now, you might just be using the wrong coordinator sometimes, which is the example provided at the top of page 681. The hare was fast and victory went to the sure and steady tortoise. The relationship between those two statements isn't clear. Put but in and it becomes clear. The hare was fast, but victory went to the sure and steady tortoise. Okay, now, what if you have two ideas, one of which is principal and the other of which is not? Here's where subordination comes in, and this is where you should study and practice the subordinating words, most of them conjunctions, some of which, however, introduce prepositional phrases, on page 683. Yes. So the police arrived and the burglars ran away. Fine. But do you really want to balance those two equally? it would make much more sense to say something like, when the police arrived, the burglars ran away. Now, there are three ways that you can subordinate information. Number one, you can introduce a relative clause. So rather than saying John was a doctor, John was very tall, you can put that second sentence into a relative clause. John, who was very tall, was a doctor. And that's one way of taking an entire concept, an entire sentence, and stuffing it into something else. The other possibility is subordinate conjunctions, as usual. Christopher Columbus encountered the Americas in 1492, although he never understood just what he had found. The although subordinates the clause coming after it, of course. That would be infinitely superior. That would be much superior to Christopher Columbus encountered the Americas in 1492, period. He never understood just what he had found. Now, sometimes you might simply want to put in a positive phrase in there. You might not want to put an entire subordinating conjunction. So take a look at the example of Elizabeth Cady Stanton, several lines up from the bottom of page 682. Elizabeth Cady Stanton helped organize the Seneca Falls Convention. She was one of the founders of the women's rights movement in the United States. Those two sentences are fine, but let's take the second sentence and just turn it into a phrase, a noun phrase, working in opposition to Elizabeth Cady Stanton. Elizabeth Cady Stanton, one of the founders of the women's rights movement in the United States, helped organize the Seneca Falls Convention of 1848. You get the idea, right? That whole second sentence has been subordinated. Well, beyond subordinate, it's been turned into a phrase that simply acts as an appositive in the first sentence. And we've seen absolute phrases elsewhere in this unit. My great-grandparents immigrated to the United States in the late 19th century. They were hoping for a better life. Now, let's take that second sentence and drop the verb entirely and just turn that into an absolute phrase with the participial, with a present participle. Hoping for a better life, my great-grandparents immigrated, blah, blah, blah. So, an intelligent use of absolute phrases there. Now, you can sometimes commit the sin of introducing faulty or excessive subordination, or you can make the main idea, you can hide the main idea, which is a bad idea, in the subordinate clause, as is happening in the sentence on literacy at the top of page 683. Literacy, which has been defined as the ability to talk intelligently about many topics, is highly valued by business people as well as academics. Surely the main idea of that is not what's hidden in the subclause. So let's turn the main clause into an absolute phrase with a past participle and put what was in the subordinate clause into the main clause. Highly valued by business people as well as academics, literacy has been defined as the ability to talk intelligently about many topics. Much better, I think. And now the main idea is foregrounded in the main clause. Sometimes subordinators can be a little ambiguous. Since is an excellent example of this, because since can have a temporal meaning. These students have been locked in their houses since the coronavirus restrictions were announced. or it can mean because. Since they could no longer leave their houses, the students gave up smoking. Um, so you can change this by making it a little less ambiguous. There are two potential revisions at the top of page 684 there. Since winning re-election, the mayor has acted to increase salaries. There's temporal. Or winning re-election has permitted the mayor to propose salary increases for town officials, and that's cause. Okay. You can have excessive subordination, and you see that at the bottom of page 684 in that monster sentence about big city mayors. There's so much information being stuffed into the subclauses there that the main clause is becoming hidden. I'd be inclined, particularly for apprentice students, to advise them to, if you're going to experiment with complex sentences, try to keep it with a main clause and one or two subordinate clauses, and not to go much beyond that. I strongly recommend exercise 44.1 on 685. It's an excellent exercise, and because it demands of you that you create a relationship between the two sentences in each section. Exercise 44.2 is all about correcting inappropriate or excessive coordination. Again, it's an excellent exercise because you're having to sort out what's wrong with these blocks of text and fixing them up. Now, the bane of every university professor's life is the short, choppy sentences found in many student essays. Look at the examples in 44F there on page 687. As the text describes, these blocks of text, they're choppy. There's too much information being provided without a relationship. You're always trying to create relationships between sentences and between clauses. My cousin Jim is not an accountant. Nevertheless, he does my taxes every year. He suggests various deductions. These deductions reduce my tax bill considerably. Now, fair enough, with words like nevertheless and these, you can see that relationship is being approached there. But since you want relationships, why not use subordinators? I think the fix here is an excellent example. Even though he is not an accountant, my cousin Jim does my taxes every year, suggesting various deductions that reduce my tax bill considerably. That's a beautiful sentence. It's quite prosaic, but it distills a great deal of information into a short sentence that still remains clear. So that's all I want to say about coordination and subordination. It's a concept that's well worth thinking about, and I recommend you also tackling exercise 44.3 to see have you mastered the skills of coordination and subordination. So I wish you all the best, and I will see you all soon.